In the middle of 1943, the P-47 Thunderbolt, one of the most formidable American fighter planes of World War II, began to show its dominance in the skies over Europe. Initially, many German pilots had underestimated the P-47, considering it a slow, clunky aircraft due to its size and weight. However, as the war progressed and the Thunderbolt began to leave a trail of destruction in its wake, the perception of this powerful machine quickly changed. On December 24, 1943, a squadron of P-47s from the 8th Fighter Squadron was on a long-range escort mission, accompanying American bombers, mainly B-17 Flying Fortress and B-24 Liberator, deep into Nazi-occupied Europe. As the bombers and their fighter escorts reached 30,000 feet, where the air thins and the enemy is more vulnerable, they encountered FW-190s and Bf-109s, the most feared fighters in the Luftwaffe at the time. The Germans, accustomed to engaging other Allied fighters like the P-51 Mustang or the Spitfire, were unprepared for the P-47. P-47 Thunderbolts were equipped with powerful Pratt & Whitney R2800 turbocharged engines, which gave them remarkable performance at high altitudes. While German fighters struggled to maintain speed and maneuverability at these heights due to the lack of oxygen and thinner air, the P-47 pilots had no such issues. The German fighters quickly learned that the P-47 Thunderbolt was no easy target. It had a reputation for being nearly indestructible, with 8 .50 caliber machine guns mounted on each wing, which could unleash a massive volume of fire. The Thunderbolt's sheer firepower created walls of lead, instantly turning German aircraft into Swiss cheese. The P-47 was designed not only for air superiority, but also for ground attack, giving it an edge in numerous combat situations. The P-47 had a significant advantage over the Bf-109 and FW-190 due to its immense durability. German pilots soon realized the P-47 could take an extraordinary amount of damage and still remain airborne. There are stories of pilots returning to base with over 200 bullet holes in their planes, and yet they managed to survive. This was largely due to the heavy armored plating and self-sealing fuel tanks that made the P-47 a tough adversary in combat. By contrast, the German planes, while more agile and nimble in close-range dogfights, were much more vulnerable to the P-47's devastating gunfire. A German FW-190 could be crippled by a few short bursts from the P-47's powerful weapons, leaving the German pilot with little chance to retaliate. The American pilots, many of whom had little experience in high-altitude combat, were quick to adapt to their new fighter. The P-47 Thunderbolt had an incredible 3,400 round ammunition capacity and could sustain incredible damage without compromising its ability to fight. This combination of power and resilience made the P-47 a game-changer in the skies over Europe. At first, the Germans referred to the P-47 as a flying tank due to its robustness. Adolf Galland, one of the most legendary German aces, later admitted, "We made a terrible mistake underestimating the P-47. What began as mockery for its weight and bulk turned into sheer terror as the P-47 relentlessly pounded German positions, both in the air and on the ground." By 1944, the term Jabo fever had become synonymous with the fear that German pilots felt when they heard the thunderous sound of the P-47s approaching. Jabo was a reference to the Jagdbomber, or fighter bomber. And when the P-47 Thunderbolts arrived, they brought devastation with them. German pilots were well aware that not only could they not escape the P-47's firepower, but they also had to contend with the Thunderbolt's incredible speed and altitude performance. In one memorable combat report, a P-47 Thunderbolt was credited with 200 confirmed kills in a single engagement, and its impact in the skies over Europe only grew stronger as the war progressed. It was clear that the P-47 had revolutionized aerial combat, leaving a lasting mark on the battlefield. By the time of D-Day in 1944, the P-47 Thunderbolt had become the primary fighter escort for American bombers. These fighters were essential for protecting the bombers against German interception, and their ground attack capabilities were becoming just as valuable. They were instrumental in disabling enemy infrastructure, such as railway lines, bridges, and trucks, which severely hampered German supply lines. The P-47 was also a pioneer in low-level attacks on military targets, becoming one of the most effective tools in the arsenal of the Allied forces. P-47 pilots conducted thousands of ground strikes, destroying 86,000 trucks, 9,000 locomotives, and 68,000 railway cars, along with countless other targets across Europe. By the end of 1944, the impact of the P-47 on German forces was devastating. The Luftwaffe had already suffered significant losses, but the rise of the P-47 Thunderbolt proved to be the final nail in the coffin for German air superiority. 3,752 Luftwaffe aircraft were destroyed in aerial combat, and American industrial might had proved that sheer numbers and mass production could overcome tactical brilliance. In less than 2 years, the once feared Luftwaffe had been reduced to a shadow of its former self, and the P-47 Thunderbolt had played a decisive role in this transformation. The P-47 Thunderbolt remains one of the most iconic fighter aircraft of World War II. Its combination of unmatched firepower, incredible durability, and superior performance at high altitudes made it a nightmare for German pilots. It turned what was initially seen as a slow and cumbersome aircraft into one of the deadliest machines in the air. Thanks to the P-47's influence, the skies over Europe were no longer dominated by the Luftwaffe, and the P-47 Thunderbolt remains a symbol of American air power and industrial might, cementing its place in the history of aerial warfare.